Hi, it's Delia. Thanks for clicking on. So today we're going to talk about another thing that gets in the way of centering and calling all of yourself back to right here, right now, or being in the present moment, as it's often called. When we've had any kind of socialization and any kind of success in life, that means we've adapted to the systems, meaning the educational system, possibly a religious discipline, a family system of that, and corporate systems. And even gig economy has, it's imbued with the value systems of all of those other ones. Partly that means that you're supposed to be fast. Everything has to be really fast. So fast is good and slow is bad, is the general rule in the culture. So many of us learned how to be fast, quick-minded, quick to catch on, quick to imitate, actually. To perform before you actually understand something is to imitate. And because quick is so valuable, that means that the values also say there's not time to train anybody, anything. There's time to show them, but not to actually properly train, because even the educational system doesn't properly train. It teaches mimicry, how to answer the right questions, how to predict what the right questions, what right answers are going to be, none of which has anything to do with knowing things, which is by design. So if taking the time to think about something, taking the time to honestly figure something out, if that was not appreciated growing up, and it hardly ever was, let's say, then you're taking the time to find out what you think, to find out what you feel, to find out what you like, to find out what you don't like. We're supposed to already know all those things all the time. It's very crazy. And they're not supposed to change once you know them, which is also crazy. Because the only constant in life is change. And as you change, as you live, you gain new information, you gain new awarenesses, and naturally, your old assumptions and conclusions and opinions would change. They would evolve. They would mature, a word the youth culture really hates in advertising and movies and everything. Maturing is actually it's just a godsend, let's say, because as you mature, you know what to let go of, and you know what's valuable to you. And that kind of self-knowledge is not only incredibly valuable to you, it's one of the reasons why we live in such a distraction-generating culture. So let's just kind of scrape off all of that and just go back to what's so risky about slowing down, because it is risky, and your body is telling you it's risky because it feels wrong and it feels bad. And what you're feeling when you feel that is a combination of old judgments and old realities. And what I mean by old realities is, for many of us, being fast, being quick, being a moving target was what was safe in various circumstances. And if we were going to grow up, we needed to know how to be fast and to be quick and how to be a moving target. So when you start to change how you operate and you want to stop being a moving target, that doesn't mean you want to be unsafe. It doesn't mean you want to expose yourself to the enemy, but that's what it feels like. And it feels that way because at one point that was really true. And at this point, in certain circumstances, it still might be true. So you might want to entertain the idea of switching your basic assumptions about yourself from wrong and needing to hide that and fix it to, what's right about this. So we're so socialized to think about what's wrong with me. This situation is making me crazy. It must be me. What's wrong with me? And there's a million examples of that. Now, just try on the idea of what's right with you. So in the same situation where you're feeling like the problem is you and you need to change, try the experiment of asking, okay, so what's right about me in this situation that I'm not getting? That when I can perceive that, it changes everything dynamically as if by magic. Because switching from perceiving what's wrong with you to what's right with you does change everything dynamically and as if by magic. So if you're, let's just stay with what's so wrong about slowing down. And what's wrong about it is usually you're exposing yourself, you're making yourself vulnerable, you're letting down your defenses, and the world is not a safe place to do those things, right? Okay. We're not arguing any of that. And we're just going to ask, so what would be right about this feeling that it's wrong? And what's right about it is that you're protecting yourself. That's what your system is designed to do. That's what it's always doing. It may have outdated information, but it's always doing its best to protect you. That's pretty great. So that's what's right about not wanting to change, not wanting to slow down. And that's where the upgrading the system comes in, because it's right based on old information. And today, you're older than you were before. You're older than the first time you discovered that to be safe, you had to be a moving target. You had to be fast. You were probably between, let's say, 1 and 6 when you looked at the world that you were living in and you concluded that to be safe, you had to be fast and you had to be a moving target. Now, this is not necessarily obvious to you today, because whatever you grew up with was normal. And it takes a certain amount of introspection and curiosity to discover that a lot of the normal things that you grew up with actually weren't normal. And it takes talking to other people who are curious and searching. Could be other people who are in a safe setting like group therapy or a 12-step program, or there's a lot of settings that you can be with other people, strangers, who are also wanting to grow. And when you hear other people talking about their interior life, you discover that you're not as alone as you thought. Maybe the story, piece by piece, doesn't match, but the feeling that person had and the feeling you had, that matches. And once you discover that without the facades and without the bravado and without the Instagram of it all, right? The perfect pictures, that you have a lot in common, and that you're not as alone as you thought. And you're not as alone as maybe you were led to believe. And you don't have to have the identical story as somebody else to feel a bond, to feel a connection, to have matching pictures, and to go, I know what that feels like, and they know what I feel like. I'm not so alone. And you don't have to become best friends with that person either. But hearing each other, hearing that there are other people that can relate and that you can relate to on the interior side of things, is a dynamic life change right there, for sure. And that's an example of, okay, so I'm slowing down, I'm in this environment, and I'm okay. I'm slowing down, I'm in this environment, I'm slowing down enough to listen, not thinking about what I'm going to say, but actually listen to this other person or these other people, and discover that there's a resonance there. And I have an idea of what they feel like, and they have an idea of what I'm feeling like. That is revelatory right there. And to discover through experience that you can slow down and be safe is huge. It's a very valuable thing to experience and to discover. It's also true. It may not be true in every situation, in every circumstance, with every human being, but it's a lot more true than never, right? So what's right about the feeling of it's not safe to slow down and not be a moving target is that your system is doing its job, which is to protect you. That's great. And to have the idea that maybe we have new information than we did when we were 4, 5, 6 years old. Because you can't possibly not have more information than you did when you were 4, 5, or 6. And so maybe there are opportunities, maybe there are people, maybe there's, therapists, or in the old days it would be social awareness and consciousness raising groups, but I guess we're in the process of reinventing those now. Circumstances where you can discover that you're okay, and that really what makes you okay is you, and all of your parts being aware of each other and cooperating. And that's a big step that takes time to get to, but just to start with recognizing that it feels unsafe to slow down, recognizing that if you have that feeling, that sensation, it initiated at some point in your life, and chances are it was a genius conclusion and strategy to come up with, and you're not that age anymore. You have resources available to you that you didn't have earlier. And so you can make different choices now and be safe. And because you're making choices for your best interest, and you're updating your information that you're operating with. Turns out you really are on your side in more ways than you thought. So switching from what's wrong with me, I must have trust issues, I need to trust everybody, to wait, if I feel this way, it was initiated out of something, it came out of something, and so it must have been true at some point, or it certainly felt true at some point, but I'm not at that point. I wonder what's true for me now. And then you can make discoveries. We are designed to need each other. We are social beings. We're designed to interact. We're designed to communicate. Not the BS Instagram everything's perfect way, but in the genuine processing life, growing, changing. How do I deal with these old feelings? How do I become aware of my different parts? How do I get them working together? All of those things. It does take other people, because we have these funhouse mirrors in our heads, and we need to clean them off, and we need help cleaning them off, because we don't know what's normal and what's not normal, right? We assume what's normal and not normal because of our experiences, but we need to branch out. We need to include other people in a very mindful kind of a way. Who you're including, consider the source. Who are you revealing yourself to? It can sound like a lot, but think of it this way. What you would have to stop paying attention to are things like, what does so-and-so think of me? What are they thinking of me? Are they plotting for me or against me? Are they starting a rumor about me? If they don't like me, what does that mean for my future, my business, my love life, whatever? I mean, there's a lot of self-doubt and worrying about other people. The society has gotten so how you look to others oriented, that maybe you would have to give up a little bit of that, which would be healthy, and pick up a little bit more of where do I get the idea? Like a lot of people have a lot of negative feelings about themselves, about the way they look, for instance. Well, who told you don't look good? And it may be as recent as when you opened social media today or a magazine today. But consider the source. Who are these people? Are you ever going to meet them? Or do they nurture you? Are they ever there when you're needing consoling? Who are these people, and why are you putting them in position of the arbiter? Let me rephrase that. You're putting them in that position because you've been told to, and you've been doing it all your life. That's the way the society is built. But what about the idea of, if it's not, it's the way other people think, but what if you don't have to think the way other people think? What if you can think that you're beautiful, just like you are? What if you can think that you're fine? Like, you're not perfect, but you're good. You're content with you. And that's kind of a revolutionary idea, because what usually gets thrown up at that point is narcissist, self-centered, a lot of stuff that being contented with yourself is not. So whatever your reasons are for feeling like it's not safe to slow down, just, validate that. I'm sure it came from someplace in my experience, and I'm sure it means well. And today, it's actually kind of hurting me now. So, what else is possible? So, play with what's right with me in this situation, that when I can perceive, it changes everything dynamically. And play with what's right about this situation that I'm not seeing, that when I can perceive, it changes everything dynamically. And see what happens. I'd love to read your comments, or send me an email, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.